everyone, this is Mindy Eggen and welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to be creating a card using the Honeybee Stamps Front Porch dies and the Front Porch add-ons. Now this video is one of those videos where I'm not really sure what to say throughout it because I'm going to be doing a lot of die cutting and gluing, but I will try and talk you through my process as much as possible. I started out with the Front Porch dies and the add-on. And I also have this insert. This is also available on the Honeybee Stamps website where it shows you the different pieces, how they line up together, and giving you a starting point with a color combination. Now, normally when I have dies like this, I start with white cardstock and kind of figure it out from there. But I decided to take inspiration right from the Honeybee Stamps sheet, their inspiration sheet. So I tried to go through my stash and match up colors as much as possible. I thought this would be the easiest way for me to really see how this is going to go together, and then I can always expand on my color choices the next time around. And you're going to see that I pull in that sheet quite often to refer to it to just figure out what pieces are going where. Now, each of these pieces also has some embossed design on it. The dies already have it on there, so it's going to give you some detail. It might be a little hard to see here on camera, but in person you can definitely see it. And if you add any ink blending over it, it is going to make those details stand out just a little bit more. I think one of the reasons I really wanted to create with the colors on that inspiration sheet is because it had a red door, and I love red doors on the front of a house. I don't know what it is about it. Maybe it's just that Christmas feel. I don't have a red door, but I really loved that I could create a red door on the front of my card. Now, since I had the main parts of my front porch put together, I did die cut out for the front door and the window pieces. I also die cut that out of a light yellow cardstock because I wanted to look like there was a glowing light in behind the door. Now, this is my main base piece that I will be decorating. And as I'm blending on Pumice Stone Distress Oxide ink, you can see how that detail is starting to kind of pop out a little bit more. Another thing I'm going to forewarn you about is I use a lot of thin foam squares. I really liked adding dimension to this, and you're going to see it throughout the video that I do use them quite a bit, the smaller ones and the regular size thin foam squares. You could just layer up cardstock if you wanted to, or you don't even have to use any, but I thought it just really played into this front porch design to have things popped up. Now I had my base layer and I had the first layer for the front porch with that really dark brown cardstock, and that one I just glued right down using the liquid glue. Now for this next piece, this third layering piece, there are two smaller, I want to say rafts is what I'm going to call them. And I decided to bring in, I think this was ground Espresso Distress Oxide ink, and add just a little bit of the ink to that because I die cut it from the same color cardstock and I wanted it to stand out just a little bit more. Now I'm going to flip that main piece over, or this third layering piece, I guess I should say, and I'm adding some foam strips to the back of it to pop it up. I started with these foam strips, but they're quite thick. They're actually kind of meant for shaker cards, so I don't use these anymore, but it was a great addition to help kind of pop up my ceiling just a little bit. Then I can bring in those other two pieces that are going to go over the top. You can see how it is shaped for the arch of my doorway, which maybe that's another reason I loved this, is because I love arches. So they are shaped to go around the arch, and there's also the corners are kind of cut off on purpose in that one corner so that it's going to nestle right in with our other roof piece. I hope that made sense. So after I added my thin foam squares to the back of these, I can just line that up with the arch and also that slant. So for this one, that slant is in the top left-hand corner. Next is that additional roof piece, and it's just a thin kind of peak. Now this one I did cut out of a craft cardstock, which was a little too light compared to the rest of it. So I am using some leftover ink I have on my brush, and I'm just going to kind of graze over that a little bit to help darken that. Again, I'm going to be using my thin foam squares to pop this up. I'll work on my front door next. So for the main piece behind my front door, I used, it's either like a super light yellow or kind of a vanilla color. This one, I'm also adding those foam squares too, and I'm going to line that up right in the center between my two pillars or the two posts for my front porch, just to make sure that it's kind of even on each side. There's just a little bit of a gap. Now I have a frame for the top portion of my window that I die cut out of a white cardstock, and I decided to do some die cut inlay because, like I said earlier, I wanted to have this warm glow behind my front door so it looks like somebody's home, or maybe they have some holiday festivities going on. I really like to, my imagination tends to go wild when it starts creating scenes like this. So this is that light yellow cardstock. I'm adding a little bit of liquid glue behind each of the pieces and placing them to where they fit, just kind of like a puzzle. And I will bring this up and give you a closer look. You'll be able to see the die cut inlay. You'll also see a lot of the detail that's involved there. So I love all of that detail. I know camera sometimes is really hard to catch it, but in person, it looks really good. Then I'll work on the side pieces for my smaller windows on the side of the door. These I die cut out of red as well, and I'm starting from the outside, working my way in. Now, another thing is that main base piece that I'm adding these to, it does have embossed lines on it to show you where these pieces line up. Now, I probably should have ran this through my die cut machine twice because it was kind of even hard for me to see. It didn't quite push down as hard as I would want it to. And also, I'm using a really light cardstock. I think there's at some point in the video you'll see I kind of reach over and I'm grabbing my reader glasses because I had my contacts in and it's hard for me to see some of those lines with my contacts. So I do end up needing to grab my readers to see those lines. Here are the pillars that are going to go next to my door. Again, there are embossed lines on there, so it is easy to line up if it's kind of pushed in there good and you have maybe a darker color cardstock. Now I'm coming to my front door. Again, I'm just using liquid glue for this one. I didn't pop that one up, and I'm having it just like the picture where the doorknob is on the left-hand side. There are kind of two cement pieces that are going to go on the bottom of our posts. Those I die cut from that same light gray color of cardstock as I did my main base piece. I'm also adding some of the pumice stone, whatever is left over on my brush, just to help darken that up, make those details stand out a little bit more. And then again, with the thin foam squares. I did some die cutting off screen. So I did some ribbon and a wreath, and I did the lights that are going to go on the side. So I did all of that off screen. I'll glue one of these on screen and then the rest I'll do kind of off screen to save a little bit of time. The ribbon I just did from the same color of red as my front door. Now the ribbon, you could die cut one layer from a dark red and the top layer from a light red. That would add a little bit of contrast to it, but they're just going to layer together nicely and they look just so adorable to hang on the front of the house. Now there's this main piece, that kind of swoop, I'm not sure what to call it, that I centered with my piece on the front of the card that comes down straight from my roof. And then I'm going to add my bows. So I do put little strips of thin foam squares behind it to pop them up a little bit. Now, obviously, this is something you would want to put in a special package if you're going to mail it. A lot of cards I end up passing out. When I make cards like this, I end up passing them out because I put a lot of work into them. I actually maybe have a couple people in mind that I think would appreciate this type of card and that I know that will probably save something like this. Onto my wreath, I did die cut it twice and I layered it together, and then I'm adding a little bit of Pine Needles Distress Oxide ink just around the outer edges. This I'm going to hang at the top of my door again with those thin foam squares. And definitely at any point, you would not need to add thin foam squares. I just really liked the dimension, and using the thin foam squares, it's giving me that little bit of a lift without it being too bulky. So really, this card is not super bulky. Now I have my lamps that I'm going to hang on the side. I did the base piece from a light yellow cardstock and the top piece from more of a dark gray cardstock, not necessarily black. So I layered those together with my liquid glue, and then of course these will be popped up as well. I wanted to add some sparkle and shine to my lights. Any of the yellow pieces of cardstock, I wanted to add some sparkle. So I have unicorn stickles. I always test it out on some scratch paper or my paper towel first to make sure it doesn't burp out on me on my project. And then I'm coloring in all of those areas so that they're going to have a really pretty sparkle to them. After this, I added embellishments to my wreath and also to my doorknob. I thought I turned my camera on. Apparently I did not. So here's a close look at that. I added some red pearls to my wreath, and then I added a little gold pearl for my doorknob. I also created my own card base. Now I can't remember offhand here what my measurements were, but I will put them at the top of the screen when I get back to my desk. But I created a small card base to attach this to. It could be a great home decor piece, which I love creating for the holidays, but I think it's also really cute to be able to put this on a card base on its own, and then give to the recipient and they can put it on display. Now this size house also works really well on a 5x7. So if you like creating larger cards like 5x7s, this front porch would be perfect for it. Or maybe you have a gift bag that would be really cute to do as well. I added tape runner to the front of that custom card base, and then I'm carefully adding my porch to the front of that because my Stickles is still pretty wet. So I'm trying really hard not to stick my fingers in there. And then I panicked for a second because I forgot that I held this closed with some Post-it tape. I thought I glued it shut. I panicked for a second, but it's really just some Post-it tape I had placed in the inside to hold it together or hold it closed while I placed my porch on the front of that card base. So I was really excited how this came out. Now at this point, the card is perfect as is. You could just add a sentiment in the inside or write your greeting in the inside, but I decided I wanted to put something on the front. So I went through my stamp sets and I found one. I think this was from last year. This is called Home for the Holidays. I have a piece of white cardstock that I placed in my Misti tool, and I'm going to ink up this particular sentiment with the Honeybee Stamps Intense Black ink. So this says, "Merry Christmas from our home to yours," which I thought was an absolutely perfect greeting to put on the front of this card. So I stamped it twice, make sure I have a really nice, good impression. I used the coordinating die to die cut it out. I did die cut it out one more time just to have that one extra layer behind the back. And then I placed some thin foam squares into the middle of that sentiment, added liquid glue to the sides, and this is going to go down towards the bottom. So the foam squares are in the middle because I don't have anything there for support, but part of that door or the pillars do have the foam squares. So it's going to even out. It's going to be flush against the front of the card. Keep in mind that you don't need to do the additions. The front porch die itself, you could use all year long, whether it's spring or summer, but the additions you can customize to make it a Christmas card. I was really happy with how this came out. It was my first time playing with the front porch dies. Super easy to put together, and I'm so grateful that Honeybee Stamps puts together those inspiration sheets. I hope you enjoyed today's card project. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I will have all of my supplies listed down below in the video description and over on my blog.